We're over a week into it now, the Cleveland Browns rebuilding of the quarterback room. And as it consists now, 8 days in, it's still just Kenny Pickett. We'll talk about the latest. Browns 3D starts now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns. 3D on the OBR is brought to you by State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Look, if we had a reason to fire things up over the weekend, we certainly would have. Obviously, the team kept you covered with the written content. We appreciate everybody for the support over there, as well as the nightly streaming. You will have Quincy Carrier after me tonight, so make sure you're subscribed to the OBR on YouTube and, of course, over on Twitch. I guess the biggest news in regards to the Cleveland Browns quarterback rebuild, revamp, whatever term or flashy words you want to use to call it. It did happen over the weekend. Rumblings towards the end of last week that, in fact, the Falcons were going to have no intention of moving on from Kirk Cousins. They stayed true to their word. So now, the guy that seemed, and again, look, the appeal of all these guys is not at a very high level, which we have said and we've stated now for months. The appeal of Kirk Cousins would have been having him be released by the Atlanta Falcons, getting paid a decent sum of money by the Atlanta Falcons, the opportunity to get him on a league minimum contract, and also the familiarity with Coach Kevin Stefanski. Now you are in a position where you would have to trade for Kirk Cousins. So all of a sudden, whatever may have been attractive about the Kirk Cousins situation has seriously been downgraded. Now you're talking about having to give up a draft asset. And in my honest opinion, that's probably not the murky part of this. Most likely, if I was Atlanta and I was in this situation, I would probably be willing to accept a 2026 draft choice with the opportunity of that pick to grow in value from the original round that it's stated to be. Say it was a 2026 fifth. Say Kirk Cousins plays out the season for the Browns. Say the Browns win 11 games. Say Kirk Cousins throws for 3,500, 30 touchdowns, whatever. And if you're the Falcons, you're going to put certainly escalators into that deal where that 2026 fifth round pick, maybe you can get it bumped up to maybe a fourth, possibility to top 100 pick. Browns fans don't want to believe that, though, right? Certainly not. Well, not top 100, right around 100, obviously. Or even a third round pick. Now, if you're the Browns and it's a 2026 fifth that Cousins hits these escalators and then becomes a 2026 third, you would probably be more than okay with that due to the fact that Kirk probably played pretty well for you, and the belief of getting hopefully all the other positional groups in line for the Browns means that the season was probably hopefully something that could be deemed a success. That's not the tricky part with now trading for Kirk Cousins. The tricky part is now that all of this money is on Kirk Cousins for this season. And I'm not going to pretend to be Jack Duffin, but I'm going to say somewhere in the $28, $29 million range for this season. The Falcons aren't going to trade him and eat all the money. They already had their opportunity to do that. So there would be, the problem is what you're going to have to pay. And we have talked certainly over the last couple of weeks about the Browns possibly putting together a quarterback room of, say, 3 veterans and the rookie, however you're going to slice the room, 2 veterans, 2 rookies, of maybe having a quarterback room in value that could be somewhere between less than $6 million, somewhere around $5 million. Does Atlanta want you to pay half the money on Kirk Cousins, which means I'm on the hook for what, $14.5, $15 million? You paying that? I'm not paying that. We're talking a guy that will now 2 years be removed from an Achilles injury. The 2024 season went really, really poorly down the stretch for Kirk Cousins, to the point where he was eventually pulled for the rookie Michael Penix. I understand, that there is, the Falcons side of saying that there was, a shoulder injury that certainly hampered Kirk over the last, I think it was 5 games that he started last year. That's okay, but, is this something that he's going to come back from? I'm not paying $15 million to see if Kirk Cousins' arm is, the last 5 games weren't necessarily the reality. $15 million, that's a good amount of money. And certainly when I'm talking about a guy, quarterback with, 37, a 37-year-old quarterback, we don't know if, year 2 off the Achilles is going to be better than year 1. We don't know where he's at. And they said there were 2 injuries. So, I don't know, shoulder, wrist, shoulder, ribs. It was a Peyton Turner from the formerly of the Saints. Peyton Turner has now moved on, who was the one that absolutely just lit him up. Kirk's right tackle on that play did him no favors whatsoever. But that's a lot of money and draft allocation. And the draft allocation, again, is probably something you can get over, because if Kirk does what you expect him to do, you'll gladly let that pick go. It's the money thing that becomes a problem for me. So, whether or not this is a viable option still now, for me, probably not. We're starting to learn now, and we learned Sunday into Monday a little bit more, that maybe the Russell Wilson meeting with the Browns, which was on Thursday, was maybe more of just trying to get to know each other a little bit. It maybe wasn't the full court press as far as trying to talk Russ in to becoming the quarterback of this team for 2025. But again, Russ is not going to come cheap. The discount was last year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. There will be no discount on Russell Wilson this year. So again, this is something where you're going to have to feed legitimate money to this with Russ Wilson. So, the dominoes are not moving at all. All of these quarterbacks in the market on these quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers included as well. Jameis was going to New York on Tuesday. The market is moving at the rate of, I would say, tugboats. It's just not moving in any way whatsoever. Certainly not a lot of action. A guy like Cooper Rush, probably considered tier 2 or tier 3 of this free agent class, signed with the Baltimore Ravens, which certainly odd. We talk all the time, when you have backup quarterbacks, you'd like your backup quarterback to kind of be something where kind of resembles maybe a lesser version of your starting quarterback. God knows when I look at Cooper Kupp, I don't think Lamar Jackson in any way whatsoever. So it's not going anywhere. Jason Lloyd today mentioned a couple of names like Trey Lance and Desmond Ridder, and definitely got some blowback on social media for that. I'm not opposed to a Trey Lance, who I think is maybe started 2 games to this point in his NFL career, is still only 24 years old. But when I say 3 veterans and a rookie, I kind of mean that Cousins, Wilson type, Kenny Pickett, the rookie. And if you want to tell Trey Lance, hey, small 1-year deal, light amount of money, coming out and let's see where you're at for the summer. Yeah, I'm fine with that. But not an expectation where, he would come here. Like, he'd have to blow everybody away, And, there's been certain quarterbacks in certain times with certain teams where they were a high selection and it just went bad quickly. Josh Rosen, Cardinals. Trey Lance, San Francisco. And the weirdest thing with Trey Lance in San Francisco, and it was because of Brock Purdy being there, was that once they got Purdy in there and saw what their vision of their quarterback in their system, making the throws, the checks, all of that come to fruition, there was no reason to even go back and see, and give a logical look back to see where Trey Lance's progression had gotten to. Started 1 game last year for Dallas, threw the pill around pretty good, ended up losing a game, ironically enough, where Marcus Mariota came off the bench. But as far as any new news in regards to the bridge, QB1, the building of this Browns quarterback room here for 2025. We are no closer to an answer than we were 1 week ago today. I'd still say most of the wanted of the options are still here. But it does seem you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers holding everybody up, which is then holding up Russell Wilson, which could then possibly holding up Atlanta's plans for Kirk Cousins. It's just an absolute mess right now. So the latest is there is no latest essentially in the Cleveland Browns and their quarterback talks. Does that mean you revisit this rookie class? We'll talk about that as we continue here. Your latest Locked On Browns, your latest Browns 3D continues. We've been talking now for about over a month. We're really excited for the partnership that we have with State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service in Broadview Heights. If you were local to the Cleveland area, they are your one-stop shop for all things lawn equipment. Listen, you want to spend your Sundays watching the Browns, not cutting your grass. Let the guys at State help you get your weekend back. They specialize in both residential and commercial equipment for Toro, the brand professionals have counted on for more than 100 years. Whether you're looking for new dependable time cutter zero turn, genuine Toro replacement parts, or expert service from experienced technicians who keep your mower in peak condition, State has got your back. Veteran-owned, the Kane family are lifeline Clevelanders. They are lifetime Browns fans and huge supporters of us here at the OBR. Again, if you are local to the Cleveland, State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service in Broadview Heights is your hometown team for all your lawn equipment needs. All their info is at State Sharp. That is StateSharp.com. Now, I think what everybody just assumes is the way this market plays out is the Browns just say, screw it to the veteran market, pick up another cheapy Kenny Pickett type, and then refocus or change their course back to the draft. Now, I don't even think it's a secret anymore. And I don't even think anybody believes there's even a possibility of the New York Giants having the opportunity to trade up to number one in any hopes of drafting Cam Ward. So that would most likely include the Cleveland Browns as well. The thing that you constantly are starting to hear more and more with Cam Ward, and this is probably what came out of the combine, and it wasn't so much teams speaking with Cam Ward, teams spending time with other Miami Hurricanes. And the reviews from his former Miami Hurricane teammates apparently spoke extremely high of Cam Ward, which is, it's a big thing in this business. Your perception, not necessarily, what's believed of you. It's getting to the people around you. And, if anybody thinks, why would they speak ill of their teammate? Look, people are people. And, somebody just rubs you the wrong way. You don't agree with them. People are not going to just, hold back, And the other thing is if you are in these meetings with NFL teams and teams think that maybe you're not being truthful in one way or the other, they want you to be honest. But the reviews from the former Hurricane teammates of Cam Ward were apparently off the charts. And really something that, took to this point here right after the combine where Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders didn't do anything. But that's all of a sudden where this gap started to become, of where Cam Ward just became absolutely cemented up top. And in a lot of people's eyes, it's tier one Cam Ward, and there is no other quarterback in tier one. It's Cam Ward, and it's Cam Ward alone. I've said many times, I just don't know how that's something the Tennessee Titans can pass on. I think their actions and their money spent on the upgrades. Kevin Zeitler, we won't talk about the left tackle, but their spending of money on their offensive line kind of shows you more and more of the intention that Tennessee is ready, in fact, to just basically go ahead and get it done and just take Cam Ward for themselves. So, of course, that leads to what's kind of been, the purple elephant in the room of this entire draft process to this point, and the Cleveland Browns with pick number 2, and of course quarterback Shedeur Sanders out of University of Colorado. Now you've heard it certainly, and look, I just want to say one thing real quick. If you guys who have the insider package here at the OBR, if you are starting to notice that there are other outlets taking that information and passing it off as their own, writing stories of their own, please help us out. Call them out, because it's a disservice to you, because you're paying for something that somebody else is giving away for free, which is not even their knowledge to have in the first place. So thank you for that small soapbox moment. And you sites that are doing it, just stop. It's not so hard to just say. Because if it's Mary Kay Cabot, you say it. If it's anybody else, you say it. So you can easily just say the OBR is reporting. So think about that for a second. The Browns do, in fact, like Shedeur Sanders. But here's the thing for the Cleveland Browns. And this would have been the decision regardless with any quarterback. And I'm saying if it's any class, say last year's guys were in this year's draft. Same type of thing. The Browns are coming out of an extremely, extremely messy divorce at the quarterback situation. So much so that you can't even say it's a divorce yet. And ironic, we're using that word with the news we got, right? With number 4. But the thing is, to go ahead and now basically commit again to 3 seasons or more, it's kind of the equivalent, like you ever had your buddy who, your buddy, your friend, boy, girl, whatever, get divorced. They go finally out on that first date. Hey, how'd it go? Oh, I think I'm in love. This is the one. What? I mean, to just jump back into it again would have been a difficult shot here. So even though the Browns do, and this is something that came from the OBR, and it's now being passed around through other bigger media outlets, that the Browns do in fact like Shedeur Sanders. They do like his mental makeup. They do like, the way his mind works, in relation to the position he plays, which certainly makes a lot of sense. He's coached by some really, really strong football people, certainly plays for a program led by his father, who's just a dominant football personality. So these are things that the Browns do like. But the question, of course, does arise here is, just because you like Shedeur Sanders, or just because, this stuff checks out, all of it's got to check out. You don't take somebody, even though he's a quarterback, with any questions in your mind at number 2 overall. And, I've said this in several times. I'm not sure if we said it here, and it's always different for the quarterback. And even if you said, if you said with Shedeur Sanders, if you thought, hey, he's a top 10 prospect, then it's okay to take him at 2. But I think the league-wide consensus ranking on Shedeur Sanders, I believe, is somewhere in the 20s right now, mid to high 20s. So that certainly is something. That's a huge thing to take it to. Then you get the, hey, we like him, but maybe we'd like to trade down and get him. Okay, but if you trade down, that doesn't necessarily make sure that you're going to acquire him. So I don't know that the Browns' thought process of bridge quarterback, try to get everything built back up, then go find the true quarterback of the future in 2026. I'm not saying, I don't know necessarily that just because things aren't working out just yet, and who knows, maybe there's a mystery here. Maybe there is a mystery quarterback we don't know about. Because I got to be honest, all of these names here that we have talked about now for 2 months, and Myles Garrett with Andrew Siciliano saying, oh, well, it was enough for me to sit here and smile. Are any of these names Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Jameis coming back? Are any of those names enough that you can say, oh, well, hey, it got Myles Garrett to smile, unless it was just a true $40 million a year smile. And we'll talk about that just in a second as well. Because if there was a quarterback option that maybe drew a smile from Myles Garrett's face, I got to wonder who it is. I truly do, because what we've seen from who's available right now for this team, it's And I think it's even worse because I think everybody was trying to say, okay, Kirk Cousins, I'll take it. If it's Russ Wilson, okay, I'll take it. But now there's a belief that you can't get Kirk. Russ has other teams he's looking into before us. So I don't know necessarily where this next domino falls in favor for the Cleveland Browns in the rebuild of this quarterback room. Now, it's very difficult that for me, and it is even more rare for me, that you will actually find me give some credit to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, look, the timing on this was absolutely piss poor on their part. If this was something they wanted to do, it honestly should have been done 2 years ago on Higgins and last year on Ja'Marr Chase. But for a team that doesn't have a lot going on, why not just say, hell with it? Let me pay what I know works for my team. Joe Burrow certainly already, underway on his long-term deal. Joe Burrow said, I want my guys paid. You bring back Mike Gesicki, I guess it was a $6.5 million deal. Not exactly sure how all that money works out, as far as guaranteed or not. And now, with it being official of the re-signing of Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. And now people, you don't have enough money, for guards. Well, random guard 1, random guard 2, Ja'Marr Chase, T. Higgins. What are you putting the money towards? Let's be honest. Apparently also this maneuvering of the money also gives and maybe reopens the window for the Cincinnati Bengals and Trey Hendrickson to continue in business. Now, Trey Hendrickson, basically for the last 2 years, has been the Cincinnati Bengals defense. 35 overall sacks within the last 2 years. Now, was this in question of maybe the market for Trey Hendrickson? And this also may shed some light, because remember, when it first came out that Trey Hendrickson was available, it sounded like it was, hey, maybe it's a second-round pick. Maybe it could even be a really, really low third-round pick. And then obviously from Hendrickson's standpoint, he would want, a new deal. And then it came out that, maybe the Bengals asking price was too high for Trey Hendrickson. Maybe the reason the Bengals asking price was too high was that the Bengals were trying to bide more time, hold out that window so they could get Chase, Higgins under wraps, and then go revisit this entire Trey Hendrickson scenario. I don't know, how the Bengals are going to make this work. And I'm going to be honest. It's going to take, you basically are going to have to be like Ichiro Suzuki when it comes to your draft capital if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. Can't afford to miss. Cannot miss at all. And it's obviously going to be an extremely defensive-laden draft. You can get some hits. There's certainly talent. This Bengals defense has obviously been the issue the last couple of years. And, of course, players missing time. And Joe Burrow dinged up a little bit 2 years ago was the deal, but not last year, of course. But I actually, applaud the Bengals. I will give them, I will razz them a little bit for taking 2 years to come to their senses on T. Higgins and maybe 1 year into coming to senses on Ja'Marr Chase. It goes back to the whole Paul DePodesta manifesto years ago, right? Find your young talent and reward it early. Bengals didn't do that approach. But eventually the Bengals did get to the correct decision on this. If you're a team in the AFC North playing the Bengals, brush up on that run game. Brush up on that run game because, you want to play ball control football against the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is nothing new that the Bengals are going to be running at you. Of course. Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Gesicki, This is nothing new they're going to be running at you. You've dealt with this team built like this, for the last couple of years. So the key, obviously, to facing the Cincinnati Bengals is going to be ball control and keeping the ball away from them. Expose what is probably going to be a very weak defense or a very young and not yet proven defense for the Cincinnati Bengals. But you don't get to hear me reap praise on the Cincinnati Bengals very often. But this is a case where I will actually do just that. So kudos to the Bengals, kudos to Chase, kudos to Higgins. And if this doesn't go well over the next year or two, then, Cincinnati would just be in absolute full-on rebuild mode. We continue here, with free agency. We do have a little bit of breaking news here, and it's not major. I'm not going to say that, obviously. But we have just gotten word that Juan Thornhill has signed a 1-year contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I will be honest, within the wording of that was top safety. Can he return to top safety, which Juan Thornhill was not. Look, the Browns are still in a situation, with the safety position. It just hasn't gotten well. And this is something that the only move to this point that I think they've really, major move, certainly was Grant Selfick. Minor moves of Hickman, certainly a minor move of D'Anthony Bell. McLeod was not a terrible move over the last couple of years. But this, in now their 6th off season, and granted they haven't done anything yet, this is a positional group that the Browns seem to be having a little bit of trouble finding the right fit. Look, Marcus Williams, formerly of the Saints, formerly of the Ravens, is out there. Still a name I like. Still a name I think that could probably contribute if healthy in a deep secondary, on the roof type of safety aspect. But as much as we spend our time talking about the quarterback position, there are still legit needs for this team. Look, the offensive line, I kind of like the way it is currently constructed. Health factors into that. Return to the old system factors into that. Certainly adding still within the draft adds to that. The tight end room is barren. The wide receiver room, as much as I like Cedric Tillman, it's not enough for me to say, let's roll on. Don't necessarily need to address that. Interestingly, Ted McMillan, whoever you talk to, it was a low 4.5, mid 4.5 running today. Didn't do any jumps, ran routes. Look, Ted McMillan's a volleyball player. I'm not concerned about his jumping ability in any way, shape, or form, okay? I think the 40 he ran is perfectly acceptable for what you're expecting for a guy like Ted McMillan, but you still need wide receivers. Running back room still needs to be addressed. Safety room still needs to be addressed. Linebacker room, we don't know enough now, one way or the other. And look, the Browns may know, maybe choosing not to tell us. They still may not know everything. And we'll see, and any more moves that come down the pike from the Browns in regards to the linebacker position will dictate what we think they know and what they do not know. But look, all eyes are certainly on the quarterback. Browns have to continue to just battle this out day in, day out. I'm sure all these franchises are kind of just, slowly, getting to their wits' end with all of this and trying to just put it to bed and get their guy. Again, this is kind of like, to equate the way this quarterback carousel is working out right now, it's kind of like a game of musical chairs in a senior living complex. That is the rate this is moving at. It's not moving quickly at all. And of course, with the quarterback position, everybody wants answers. Unfortunately, that is just not the case right now. So we continue on there, certainly. So the Browns continue their search for the quarterback position. Does this now open up the possibility and open up the door for Shedeur Sanders when everybody seemed like it was absolutely closed? Is Shedeur Sanders the reason, the guy that got Myles Garrett to smile with Andrew Siciliano as far as the quarterback that the Browns maybe visioned? What did that smile mean? What warranted that smile? What was the name that gave that grin? Or was it just $123 million guaranteed? Which, hey, Myles Garrett may have permagrin right now, and it's completely, totally, and utterly understandable. And for one of the few times ever you will hear me speak, and you heard me speak well on the Cincinnati Bengals. I am Jeff Lloyd, your host here at Browns 3D. Again, we appreciate everybody for all the support here. Busy time of the year. The written content is blowing up. We appreciate you guys coming out every day, just consuming and absorbing that. Your nightly streaming starting every day with myself, Browns 3D at 6 o'clock. Monday, you'll have Quincy Carrier at 7. Stick around for that. Q gets the job done. Puts butts in seats. So stick around for that. Make sure you subscribed to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribed to the OBR over on Twitch. Browns 3D and the OBR has been brought to you by State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service. This has been your daily delivery of all things dog pound. Browns 3D on the OBR. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow.